And then it's like, I'm never going to shoot up. Well, eventually, man, like,
Yeah.
I want to know what the next thing is. I'm shooting up, right? For the last 3 years until I got sober, it was really like just full-fledged heroin addiction, robbing, stealing, lying to everybody, like some hustler or another, just like lying to like I was still had like connections to the game. So I'd like lie to my friend, oh, I got a big come up coming. Can you help me out with this? And then just burn, my best friends or my family or whatever. Like just always constant lies, constant mental gymnastics, like whatever you got to do to get the next bag.
Man, Nat Rogachevsky, Free Yourself, episode 144. This guy is an amazing up-and-coming comedian, and we share a very similar past because we both have gone through the hell that is addiction. But we both have gotten through it and gone on to chase big, incredible dreams. Me with music and with coaching health, him moving from Boston, Massachusetts to Austin, Texas to chase his dream of being a stand-up comedian. There's so many similarities between our journey through addiction and our journey through our, hopes and dreams as an artist. Comedians are artists too. Musicians are artists. Coaches are artists. Like there's this beautiful thing that happens when you engage in a dream like this, and you have this like ultimate goal that you're striving for. So it keeps you centered and on the right path, staying clean, staying sober. There's plenty of different 12-step fellowships, but one of the best things that the 12-step fellowships and being an artist can give you is a sense of community. Being a coach, sense of community, the connection that you get with another human being, with other human beings with similar goals. It's really what, I was missing, what he was missing in his life. And when you take someone that has the drive of an addict and put it towards this beautiful goal, you usually see them become wildly successful. And it's so cool to see him on his journey. He literally moved to Austin. He said in his last post, he left everybody he knows and moved down to Austin with 2 people. Like, left everybody he knows, moved to a place that he knows nothing about, just that the comedy scene is booming right now because Rogan and Tom Segura and Tony Hinchcliffe and Ron White are all down there and cultivating this awesome community of comedians, and I follow all of them. And so I know the whole story behind it. But it's so cool to see, and I myself have now, moved back to Philly and moved in with this beautiful community of artists and of all different kinds, not just musicians, not just DJs and producers, but flow artists and audio visual artists and all these different people that are, so it's so cool to see him doing his thing and to see the similarities in my own life. We talk about everything from his move down there to how he got started in comedy to what it's like to bomb on stage in front of people and about his whole journey and through and, out of addiction, right? Recovery. It's a beautiful thing. Lost dreams awaken, new possibilities arise. Any addict can stop using, lose the desire to use, and find a new way to live. And that's proof of that. Love you, brother. Hope you guys enjoy this episode as much as I did. Peace and love. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Free Yourself podcast. For those of you who don't know, my name is Ryan Janni, and I am naked. And today we have a very, very special guest. I'm very excited to have on my man, NAT ROGACHEVSKY. I say that right?
Perfect.
Hell yeah. So for everybody that is tuning in, I saw Nat on Kill Tony. I'm a huge comedy fan. It's finally something that I'm a fan of that I'm not trying to do. Like I have a nice habit of starting things. And so I've been, dialing in on music production, on DJing, and my health coaching journey. And one of the things that led me to that is one of the reasons why I'm having you on today, Nat. So
sure.
For everybody that is just meeting Nat, when I saw him on Kill Tony, crushed his set, and then the fucking the interview portion where Tony Hinchcliffe then talks to the guests on the show. You mentioned that you had been clean for quite some time, and that's something that everyone that follows me knows has been a part of my journey as well. And that's really why I wanted to have you on the podcast. It's a big reason why it's called Free Yourself. I don't know if you've ever been to Narcotics Anonymous meetings and they ask for a burning desire, someone will say from the crowd, free yourself. And it's just like a motivation for someone to get something off their chest. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Nat.
Of course, man. Stoked to be here. And I know this was a culmination of a lot of misscheduling on my part. So I appreciate your patience, man. And I'm glad we can finally do it, and I can stick to it and chat with you, man. It's a cool thing you're doing.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for your time, man. The first, kind of things I want to talk about is how you got into comedy. Cause it takes a lot of balls to get up there on stage. Like I do it behind a DJ booth with, music I can play, and I don't have to get on the mic if I don't want to, but you just go up there and it's all you and a microphone. So How did you get into comedy?
Sure, man. So, really I'd been a huge fan of comedy since I first saw it. And it was really watching those old Comedy Central Presents specials back in the late 90s and early 2000s. I remember watching just stand up all the time. And it was just never something I considered as an option. And as you know, it's pretty hard to get anything done when you're an active addiction and alcoholism. Yeah. There's not a lot of dream chasing going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd been sober for a few years. And so it's actually crazy. My buddy, Mason Smith, who was on the same episode that you saw, that you found me from, he's my buddy from Boston. I met him in Arkansas. I met him at a music festival about 10 years ago. And he became 2 weeks later, he became my roommate. He was one of my all-time best friends. He's been doing comedy for a few years, and he's always been dude, you gotta try it. You gotta check it out. I don't know why you don't do it. We're always shooting the shit. Both of us have been the funny guys in our crew or whatever. And I just never considered it an option. You know what I mean? It's we never really had the emphasis on creative pursuits in my family. It was just listen, man, get the money and go home. Right.
Yeah.
and that's totally chill. I don't agree or disagree with that. It just wasn't the artistic route wasn't something that was really even discussed much. So I just said, think about it. And my buddy had been nagging me to hit an open mic. I did it once or twice, and it was with no intention of actually doing it. And during the pandemic, I had some sales gig. I was doing recruiting, and I got laid off, and I was super really I hated doing the sales so much. And I don't knock anybody who does a 9-to-5 or lives within the corporate structure, works within the corporate structure. I know people who have big, happy, and full lives that were doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
Power to them. I was just beyond miserable. I was ready to, it was awful. So when I got laid off, it was nothing but a relief. And then it like, dude, I don't even know where this came from. I think a lot of people had a good amount of time to like really reflect throughout the pandemic, and a lot of people were looking inward. And I just came to this conclusion, and it was strangely like definitive out of nowhere, where the thought just came to me going, whatever I do next, I'm going to love it. And it was like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. It came completely out of nowhere. I had just left this job, and literally that was it. That was the whole conversation. Whatever I do next, I'm going to love it. And then I was like, well, what do I love? And I was like, I love making people laugh, like more than anything. It's always been like the way I interact with people, the way I meet women, a defense mechanism. It's always been, it's always been the thing there. And so I dicked around. I did like a couple of open mics. I still hadn't decided to do like comedy. I was just like kind of flirting with a bunch of ideas. And then in February of 2021, so relatively recently, Mason, same kid, hits me up and he's like, yo, this kid Dave is having an open mic at his house. Boston was completely locked down. If you want to go an open mic, you had to go to Providence, Rhode Island, or Manchester, New Hampshire, or Worcester, like all about an hour away. Yeah. And you're from the Northeast, like where these areas are. So our buddy, my now really good friend Dave, who was on the same episode, believe it or not, like it's so crazy.
I remember a bunch of people from Boston being on that fucking episode.
Some of my best buddies, people that like for real, without Dave and Mason, without those two dudes specifically, I wouldn't be doing comedy. So it's like, it's insane. Because for those who don't know, about 80 to 120 people sign up to go on the show. You pull a name from a bucket, and like 5 to 7 people get pulled throughout the course of an hour and a half episode, whatever. So the odds of the three of us getting pulled, my buddy Mason had just moved here to Austin. Dave was literally visiting and just threw his name in the bucket. So what happened was this kid Dave, who at that time I didn't know, was having an open mic at his crib, which was like technically illegal because like there was like you can't have more than like 5 people, whatever.
Yeah.
And Mason was like, yo, you got to really give this comedy thing a shot. I'm going to ask Dave if he's got room for you on the mic because there's only so many slots. And I literally that night sat down and wrote 5 minutes of material and went to this kid Dave's house and crushed. No one knew who I was. I wouldn't call myself a comic. People were like, yo, where'd this kid come from? You know what I mean? And I'm not doing this to toot my own horn. I only give it an example of like, sometimes you just know you're doing the right thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like on the path, you know what I mean? That you're supposed to be on. And that was one of those things where like, dude, totally. So that was one of those things where I left it and I was just like, I think I'm supposed to be doing this with like really no experience. Like it was that one good, like fortunate, like serendipitous experience. And I was like, I'm going to really give this thing a shot. And me and my girl were talking about moving anyway. And it was either like Miami or Austin. A lot of family in Miami, but like the comedy scene's trash. And then we're like, all right. And we booked a flight to go check out Austin in May and moved here in September. I've been doing comedy every night, every night since.
Hell yeah, man. I'm sure from, getting sober and being around sober people, like you've heard the term like God instances, right? And like there's no coincidences and stuff like that. And like for all 3 of you guys to get on the same Kill Tony episode, like that's freaking wild. But also I'm sure you've heard the term like beginner's luck, and like to take it like a step further with beginner's luck, when you experience beginner's luck in something, this is I've just heard this as maybe it's not real, but maybe it is, because like if you believe it, it fucking is. But when you experience that beginner's luck when you're starting a new venture, it's like a sign that that's the thing you're supposed to be doing. But then like it also gets harder because you gotta push through it, right? And I'm sure you know what it's like to freaking bomb on stage. And I want to get back to like what that's like, but because I've never actually been able to speak to a comedian about it. But as a DJ, there's been plenty of times where I'm DJing and No one's vibing. No one gives a fuck about house music. Everybody is just like, can you play Rihanna and like Nicki Minaj and shit? And you're just like, but I promise this is like good shit. It's gonna make you dance, but it's just like not hitting. And like after those sets, you're like, should I even be doing this? It's like it's freaking, it's a lot, man. So when you're but it's still different because like there's still sound playing. Like if you're bombing and you like freeze up, like it's just silent. Like, so take me like when is like I saw your second appearance on Kill Tony too. And like that one, I will say your first one was probably better than your second one. And I think everybody made that, you know, Tony especially like to jab at that, but he's a professional at what he freaking does. He's like freaking king of roasting. Him and David Lucas going back and forth is one of the greatest things in comedy. So like take me through like we talked about your first set and how it went great and you were like, all right, I'm gonna do this. But take me through like your worst set and like those feelings and going up there. Did you think like, all right, this material is really good because it's done well before? Like, take me through what happened. You get there. Now take me through the whole fucking thing.
So part of it is like, sometimes there's going to be like a tough room or a tough crowd. Everybody's eating a bag of dicks and you're just trying to make it fun for yourself and for your comic friends, essentially. Because there's going to be plenty of shows you do where it's like some free bar show that like people didn't even know there was comedy happening. And they're like literally trying to watch like a Giants game or whatever. And you're like, and you're talking about your dick, you know, it's like whatever. So that's going to happen, but you can't count that as a bomb. And I've bombed for real, which is like, it's a good show. It's a good crowd. Your homies are doing good and you're sucking it. and it's like, and it happens to everybody. It's like, it's literally unpreventable. You can like learn from that mistake, whatever, because there's always a mistake, right? It's never, the truth is, and that's one of the hardest parts about it is because you have to walk through that pain. You have to learn like, okay, if I wanted to like hide behind this and not grow, I could just blame, oh, if this or that hadn't happened or this, like, but the truth is you made some decision along the way that they didn't like and you didn't correct in time or whatever, you just sealed your fate and they just decide they don't like you, man. And like, they're not going to like you. So you have to learn through those experiences. You have to really pick it up. But in terms of like the actual, so I can tell you that, so that first experience was really good. I started getting booked on shows really, really quickly, like way faster than is like your kind of general line of like, you know, here's your experience level. Here's when you start getting paid. Like I got booked quickly, started making money doing comedy quickly. And I had like a ton of really good experiences. And you're gonna bomb at open mics all the time anyway. And open mic is just, it's just a bunch of comics hanging out. Unless you tell something brand new that they've never heard before out of you. Like most of the time it's just, you know, it's comics and they're just focused on their own shit, writing their own notes, they're just waiting for their turn. So they're not really like there for you. No one's really there to watch comedy. They're just there to do their own comedy. Yeah. So that you like, it feels bad, but you learn like it doesn't matter very quickly. And then if you have something that's like brand new and they like it and you get any kind of reaction on open mic, you're like, oh, I'm on to something. But I can tell you when I was visiting here in May, before I pulled the trigger and moved here, I got on a show with my buddy Spencer up here in Georgetown. It's like a really good show. And people have been telling me like, yo, this is a hot show. And I went out there and like the dude before me, like he didn't do great, but it was like whatever. And man, I went out with like just so much attitude and like so much spunk. And I tried some joke about the room. I like kind of made fun of the room a little bit. Like, you know, kind of classic trick. You like address the room or like the crowd or something just to get everybody like involved and together. It's like an old trick that works. Like do a little crowd work up top or like, oh, isn't this place strange? Like just something like that to remind them, hey, we're all in this room together. I did that and it did not work at all. Like right away, I made some dumb joke about the place and they were like, what are you talking? Like, And I've been doing comedy for like, I've been doing comedy for 3 months and had like a just pretty good, very lucky beginning of comedy. Of course, some of it's like natural proclivity. Like I know, like I make people laugh. I can do that, but still very fortunate, very serendipitous. And I just eat it up top, like right away. First joke, they're like, "What?" And I had no idea like what to do with that, because that's another thing that's like an experience level thing. Like how do you tell a joke that doesn't work and then get them right back, right? And I didn't know how to do that at all. So now I'm just like and going like in on myself. Right now, I just want to like shield myself because I'm already like fuck, right? And then you're like, all right, this next one. But then you're like, all right, this next one's gonna get them. But you're already scared, so you don't even necessarily like fuck up the wording or anything, but you're not like selling the joke because you're just out of it already.
Your energy is just like way the fuck.
And even like non-comic crowd, they can smell if you're not confident. Like they know, dude. And so I'm like, this first joke that's like, it's a guaranteed surefire smash. It's always my first joke at this point. It's never not worked. Flatline, dude, like nothing. And I'm like, dude, I remember being like, what's going on right now? Like, what is happening? And so I'm trying to power through it. And then like 2 minutes in, at about 2 minutes, that's when reality sinks in. At the 2 minute mark, you're like, I'm bombing right now. You're like, this is what bombing means. And this was in like this big room on like a big stage. That's the funniest part of the whole thing, because I'm like on this big ass stage, and there's like 80 people, and I'm just eating a bag of dicks. And you can't get off. You can't just get off, because that's worse. You can't like have a hissy fit and be like, fuck you guys. Because that's the shit people really remember. Like, it sucks to bomb, especially in front of comics. But the truth is, like the best comics in the world bomb all the time.
Yeah.
And especially in the beginning of their careers, of course. So in my mind, I'm like, oh my God, like I just got here. This is the first people are seeing of me. Like I need to be doing good in front of everybody so I can get booked on more shit. And I'm like eating a bag of dicks and like this and that. But the truth is, like, anyone who's been doing comedy for like a second knows, like, hey, yeah, you had a bad set. You took a risk. You made a mistake. It fucked up. They didn't like you. Get them next time. But that shit fucked me up for like 2 days, where like, dude, I've only had one, like I've had like rough sets where like they're barely laughing, and like I had them and they were like entertained but not really engaged. Like it's gonna happen. But I've only had one more bomb of that caliber that was just like, they just fucking didn't like me at all, dude. And there was nothing I could do about it. And then I got off the stage, I'm like, fuck. And then I watched the next guy do really good. And
I just fucking
and there's nothing no excuse I could make other than like, dude, you sucked a dick, you know? Like,
so,
and yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, so now take me through, because now you've got this fucking feeling in you. How do you get back? Like how long did you wait till you got back on stage, and what was that next set like for you?
I mean, I was up the next day. So I was visiting. I was like really just getting plugged in. I had that show. I think I had another show the next day, and I did like pretty good on it. But I still hadn't forgotten about that bomb. Like that bomb was like so epic that I like did good at this other show, and I was like, and people were like, "Oh, great set!" Like, no. I'm like, yeah, thanks. You know, like just still in the past, which is like, as you know, as an addict, like a really shitty place to be.
Yeah.
And so, I like went right. Like that's the one thing. And I think that's what really separate, like there's a lot of people that have a tough time in the beginning of their careers in comedy for a long time. But if you like keep doing it, you really learn like how to get through all of it. And you come to learn after a while is like, there are people who like weren't funny that learned how to be funny. And like all they did was not quit. And eventually like it all, and they just kept doing it. And like, that's really the mentality. So I was like, well, what was really painful was that I taped it and I watched it and I learned what I did wrong.
But
And
that's
I knew,
good.
and
But that's good.
it's good. And that's like, as you understand, like true growth of any kind will coincide directly with pain. Like that is just a fact, be it physical, mental, spiritual, like you're going to experience pain while you're growing. And that shit was so brutal. And it was like really tough. Like, oh, I'm watching, like, why do I do that? But I had to watch that tape and I had to recognize how my energy was all off. And I had to recognize all of those things to be able to not do them again. You know what I mean? And so now if they don't like one of my jokes, like I know how to, like, if I can like address that and make it fun. Oh, like I know how to address my joke not working in a funny manner that brings people back in and keep trucking along, or even just blast right by it and seem like unaffected and get them right back on the next one. Right. And that's just the difference. That's like, and I wouldn't know how to do that without watching that tape and reliving the nightmare and all that stuff. But in terms of getting back up, I have found, like, I'm always going to get back up. I'm very, very fortunate that, like, at this point, I, like, for example, right, I had a buddy from the program. He's in town right now visiting. And he's staying at this like super nice hotel. He got into town on Monday, and I'd already been like, man, I've been hitting it like every night for weeks, like just chasing after it, like every night, hitting every mic, every show, like just I spend from like 5 p.m. to 1 out doing comedy, like pretty much every day.
Hell yeah.
And every now and then, and you got to, and every now and then I'm like, okay, I need to take like legit, like a mental health break, like so I don't burn out,
Yeah.
And I remember my boy was in town. I was like, perfect opportunity. We'll just get like some grub, we'll chill. Celtics were playing or whatever. And he was like, yo, let's find a place to meet up, this and that. And I'm like looking at where he's at, and I'm looking at like where I'm at, and I'm like, oh shit, there's an open mic like right in between. Like, and so I was like, yo, meet me here. They got TVs downstairs. I'm gonna do something real quick. I just ran up. Like I couldn't not do it, dude. And like to your point, you learn that stuff where then and I hate to say it, like I love watching my friends succeed, and I think that's a real gift of the program, like to remove that ego a bit and like kind of really learning how to do this as a team.
Yeah.
And build each other up. I really like got directly from step work and stuff. But there are sometimes where like I'll have a bad set and then I'll watch a buddy that I admire like a lot have a bad set, and I'll be like, I'm just grateful it's not just me. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, I mean,
that does happen. Like I'll watch someone I know is like way better, like, and not have a tough time. I'm like, thank God.
Dude, there's so many similarities in music to comedy. And I think a lot of musicians like would like to be comics, and a lot of comics have like, it's very artsy. You have to craft this, not just like for us, it's music, right? Making music so that we can play, or if you don't make music, just making a good set to like go out and play, and at least having like a log of, all the songs you want to play and different playlists so you can pull from at different times and stuff. But like, what's it like to, like for you, I've heard, Bert and Tom and Joe Rogan and Duncan Trussell, Joey D, like all these guys, I've heard them all talk about their writing processes and stuff. And then George Carlin he would I think he would write, is either he wrote high and then cleaned it up sober, or the other way around. Like, so yeah. What's your sort of writing process? Is it more of like sitting down and writing it, or is it more on stage?
It's changed a lot in the short time that I've been doing comedy. When I first started, I had all these like ideas up front. And again, like we talk about that like, the hand of God, where like I wrote some of like my best jokes right away, and some that I still do. And I've refined them a bunch and added a bunch and taken away a bunch, and like really learned how to structure a bit and stuff like that. And, that just comes from doing it and seeing what works and playing back the tape and watching your friends and all that, taking class from the pros. But what it was for a while was just living, like, and you'll hear comics talk about it. Eventually you start to develop this like way of like thinking through the world where you're like always looking for the joke, like all the time. So I'll see a billboard and I'll think it's worded funny. I'll like write it down and then I go home and write about it. Or someone says something that's silly or like a very, very specific situation that I think is absurd happens. And I'm like, I think that's really funny and I'll return to it. And so, and then sometimes I'll go in really blind and just like sit down and write for like a few hours. And that's really hard, but super benefit. It's like one of those things where it's like the muse is going to hit you when it's going to hit you. So you want to be in the studio when it does. You know what I mean? Like that's the idea. So I didn't write, like I probably write now more than I ever did. And part of that is because it's like uber competitive out here and there's so many great writers and like you just like have to advance. And so I do, like I sit down and I'll write, but a lot of times it's like I'll get inspired to write. For example, like I just watched the new Joe List special that they dropped on YouTube. That is like, it's the funniest thing in the world.
Hell yeah.
And he's so good. And he's got so many jokes like per second that I'm like, you know, and I just, literally like, I turned off the special and I went and wrote like 3 hours and I literally just wrote like 8 minutes of good new material like that I'm like hashing out now. And then you return to it and I edit it down and I'll try it. And then I'm like, man, and then I'll realize like that just doesn't need to be there. And then I'll let it breathe and I'll come back to it a couple months later with like a fresh set of eyes and be like, oh, this is an angle I didn't even think about taking this. And that's even funnier than like the point I was trying to make before. But in terms of the process, a lot of it, like I've got a notepad on my phone full of like a million like quasi ideas, like semi funny premises or topics or whatever. And just like piece by piece, I kind of go through them and like return to them and like expound upon them. And sometimes I think the funniest shit comes from the gut. So when I get really inspired to write about something specifically, I tend to notice, I'm like, you really think this is true, right? Like, cause I can like try to write a joke about anything. And sometimes I can really squeeze a pretty decent joke out of like whatever topic, like you just keep writing and that'll happen. But then if I realize something about myself that I think is either like a unique perspective or just personal enough to be like so true that I can really get into it about the topic, right? Then I can really sit down and feel inspired to do it because I'm not really like forcing anything, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it's just my perspective and my actual one. Whereas I can be like, oh, that's funny. Like, that's a silly little thing. And I think there's a lot of things that I disagree with people on. I can write about this and that's true. Maybe I got a couple good, clean, like solid jokes. And that's great. You got to keep doing that. You got to keep that muscle working. Maybe they make it into the tight 20. Maybe they don't. Like, just keep writing them. And then every now and then it's just like, I really think that's true for me. And I genuinely feel this way. And I might even think that my opinion is the wrong one. You know what I mean? And that's funny, right? So that's where I found like a lot of the magic happen. But the truth is, man, and Seinfeld said this, is that every joke is a miracle. Every time I write a good one, I think that's my last good joke forever. Like I'm never gonna write another good joke. And then you just keep doing it and you keep thinking about stuff and you keep like, you know, it's a real grind. That like working that comedic muscle is a super duper real thing, you know, and you just, that's why I encourage my buddies to like write even when they like, cause like you said, like there's a lot of people that write on stage and stuff like that. And there's a lot of people that, you know, their style of comedy is a lot more like storytelling and they don't write like traditional joke structures and this and that. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Just keep yourself in a funny place because you're just going to get funnier. You know what I mean? Like you're only going to get funnier. So that's where I'm at.
So you ever sit in a meeting and like, do you have any material that's about like any experiences in AA and NA? Like obviously,
yeah,
you know, you don't talk about names and shit, but like,
right.
Is there anything that's ever made it into your set like about AA and NA?
Yeah, I have one very specific reference to 12-step stuff. I talk about addiction. I talk about recovery in a more broad sense. For like But I do, the only time I've ever really mentioned like meetings is I actually have a joke where I like talk about like sex addiction and how, so I talk about my experience as a drug addict. I do a bunch of stuff like that. And most of the stuff is like um, what's it called? Like I'm making fun of not like being a drug addict, but other people's relationships with it. So one of the jokes I used to do all the time is that like you tell a girl you're a like a recovering drug addict, and they think you're like a 9/11 firefighter. They're like, "Oh, that's so brave." Oh my God. And I'm like, you know what is actually braver is like never having shot heroin. I would say that's brave.
Dude, that's perfect. Cause like,
right.
Dude, every time like I'm, DJ, you're comedian in bars and clubs. That's just like how it is, right? Like I'm not, that's the environment, especially electronic music. Like everybody's getting fucked up at the shows, but I'm sure you've experienced this too, where it's like you go out and you actually meet a lot of people that, I thought everybody was so fucked up at shows, but like there's actually a lot of people that aren't on anything and they're just like experiencing the music. So like it's so funny though, when I have that conversation with someone, it's never like, I'm like, oh no, please don't give me that. Like it's never anything like that.
Right.
It's they're going to get a drink and they're like, do you want anything? And I'll be like, I'm good. Or a water, like, and they're just 100%. Like, they're just like, sometimes it's just like, okay. And they don't even think about it. But then other times it's like, wait, do you not drink? And then I'm just like, well, yeah, but I'm just, I power lift. So like I need to, I try to just deflect from like saying, I'm, 7.5 years, I haven't touched anything. And like, I'm so, because I never want it to be this thing where it's like, don't congratulate me. I was an asshole.
So that's like, so then I follow that up by being like, when they start freaking out about how brave you are, then I'm like, that would be like going on a first date and you're like, hey, I used to commit tax fraud and now I don't. And the girl's like, like,
hell yeah.
It's like all I did was I stopped doing the wrong thing.
Yeah. It's like now I'm just a good, member of society now. Instead of getting everybody to do more drugs and oh man, that's an experience I've had like too many times. And like,
and I'm sure you had this one where your sobriety has, for when you weren't even asking at all, just for some reason, it gets people feel like it makes people feel the need to start getting like super introspective where you're like, oh no, actually I don't drink. And then they'll go, yeah, I used to drink a lot more and I used to have a real problem with whiskey, but now it's just a beer. I'm like, I didn't ask you.
Yeah. Or the other thing where they're like, I've really been trying to cut back on, but like, you get that conversation. Like, I've really been thinking about, stopping drinking altogether. And I'm just like, like the first, usually I'm just like, dude, like whatever, like you seem fine.
I'm not judging you.
I know I couldn't handle that shit anymore. Right. So like I had to do something about it. And like, but then you have the person who's like really like you said, really getting introspective and like, like I know how bad this is for me and all that. And I'm just like, stop, like you're supposed to have fun. This wasn't supposed to, like, you're here to have fun. Like, don't think don't think about now. Don't make my fucking issue make you feel fucking bad that you're having fun. Like it's, that shit cracks me up, man. But like, so now that we kind of, are talking about it, like what, I don't obviously, I know, it's not good to talk about like war stories and we don't want to live in the past, but like what, sort of, led you down that road? Like,
so I, like my whole thing was like, I just like, I mean, it immediately fell in love with drugs and alcohol, like right away. And it felt like the first time I was able to like connect with other people. I always just like felt, and you hear people in recovery talk about it all the time, but like I had such a hard time relating to or connecting with people my age and like making friends or keeping them. And I right away found out that like getting drunk and high was like a good way, like I could shoot the shit with my friends and really make like relationships. And for a while I was like, oh yeah, that's it. Like that's the move. And it's just like, I just like them so much. I just chose drugs and alcohol like immediately, like over anything else. Like it was to a crazy degree. Like so I was like a pretty good student. And then I dropped out my sophomore year because I was just didn't go to school anymore. I was like, because if anyone was like, yo, do you want to skip that class and smoke? I'm like, yes. Like not even a thought of like the future or like that you should just go to high school or like whatever. And so when they said when like I dropped out, because essentially it was like, listen, at this point you're gonna have to repeat a year. And I was like, oh, I'd rather die than like fucking go be a sophomore. All my friends are juniors. Like, and I was like, no, I'll just keep getting fucked up, whatever. And then like I could talk about it all day, but basically the story just continues to progress. Like I get introduced to the next drug, love it. Like very quickly, I'm partying hard. Like by 16, I tried like most stuff, and I had stayed away from opiates just because, as you're all too familiar in the Northeast, like it's just gonna hit your town like bad. And like I'm sure you had a similar experience. Was like if you're in high school in the Northeast, especially in like a metropolitan area, you know, Massachusetts, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, like you're going to have people who are like pill addicts by the time you're in your like junior and senior year in high school. And it starts freshman year, like everybody tries a 30 or whatever, like da, 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 da. And I saw the writing on the wall, like so many kids were becoming like real junkies, like so young that I was like, okay, I'm not going to fuck with that. I stayed away from it, got really into the festival community, super psychedelics, like selling a lot of drugs, like lots of drugs. That was like a big part of the story for a long time. And then at some point, I'm like around 20, and I'm making money hand over fist, just hustling. Haven't done anything, no college, nothing, like just hustling, Molly, acid, pot, K, whatever, like all the fun stuff. And then we just were like, we had just done every drug imaginable. And eventually I was just like, I'm killing it. I'm going to do like a Percocet or whatever. And you have to understand that like, I'm already like a full-fledged drug addict. Like I'm getting fucked up in one way or another in every way, getting shit-faced every night. Like if I'm not doing this one, I'm doing this other, like there's no way I'm sober tonight. You know what I mean? Like no way I can't operate. And then at that point, when I got into opiates, and it immediately felt like that sense of relief and ease and comfort that they talk about in all the literature amongst all the different recovery groups, that like aha moment, I really experienced that truly with opiates. And for like whatever reason, that was my brain chemistry. And then it just became convenient because I was like, okay, got it. This makes me feel complete. It makes me feel like a regular person. I get high as fuck and I love the feeling. And now I don't have to worry about all the other stuff. I can just do opiate. Like it was more simple than life before that.
Yeah, right. So, like, instead of all of these, just this.
Right. That's all I got to worry about. Just get that. Right. And like that, dude, that happened so quickly. I already had addiction and alcoholism that I wasn't anywhere near able to like identify or recognize. Like all my parents knew it, like my family knew I was getting like fucked up and they thought I was just like generally troubled. And so by the time opiates come around, I'm like, and I had all this money laying around, and it was like, dude, I mean, fast, I'm getting like just like full-fledged opiate junkie. And then very quickly after that, I'm like, dude, I'm spending like $1,200 a day on my pill addiction. And then, I just ended up rolling in the circles where it was like, dope's cheaper, it's better, blah, 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 blah. Now I'm a heroin addict, you know what I mean? Like just like that. And it's like we always talk about, like, I swore I was never going to do the opiates because I saw what it did to those people. I do the opiates. I love them. Great. Well, now I'm never going to do heroin. Right. And it's like, well, there's heroin. I did it, and then it's like, I'm never going to shoot up. Well, eventually, man, like,
yeah,
I want to know what the next thing is. I'm shooting up. Right. And so for the last like 3 years, I'm like, trying to quit or not trying to quit. And then for the last 3 years until I got sober, it was really like just full-fledged heroin addiction. Like I stopped even having the strength to make money hustling. Like I was just like robbing, stealing, lying to everybody, like some hustler or another, just like lying to my, like I was still had like connections to the game. So I'd like lie to my friend. Oh, I got a big come up coming. Can you help me out with this? And then just burn, my best friends or my family or whatever. Like just always constant lies, constant mental gymnastics, like whatever you got to do to get the next bag. And then one thing I talk about like getting sober for me, that like spiritual malady that we talk about, it was really like, you know, any alcoholic or addict will know, like I can fall asleep tonight as long as I got my hit for the morning, right? As long as I got my bottle for the morning, I can fall asleep peacefully tonight. Well, I stopped falling asleep peacefully like years ago. And it didn't matter if I had enough for the whole week. I knew tomorrow was going to suck. Regardless of if I'm not going to be like full-fledged dope sick, I know I'm not looking forward to anything. I know I'm not nurturing any relationships. I know I'm not accomplishing anything. I know I'm not making anybody laugh. I know I'm not laughing. You know what I mean? Like, even so, for a while, it was literally just me. I'd get high and I'd lay on a mattress on the ground in this room, and I would just set up this laptop, like this one right here, and I would just throw on some Netflix and just like that was it. That was my whole life, just me and my laptop right there, just looking right into it, watching whatever, like this and that, and like that was it. Like literally, that was it. You know what I mean? Like for like a couple years, and it was just so small and so dark and so painful. And then you eventually you get to a point where you're like, dude, I can't imagine going on like this. I keep scaring myself. I keep doing more. I'm speedballing. Like I'm going to die. And like, it just doesn't seem like life. You know what I mean? Like this isn't like the life that people talk about, like living. It doesn't feel like living. So you have that on one hand. And on the other hand, you're like, well, the only thing worse than this is being sober. Right. That's, you know what I mean? It's literally the only thing where this is literally hell. And this is somehow a layer lower than it just being sober. Right. And I do that thing. Well, if you felt like I felt, you'd be fucked up too. Right. But so that's it. I hit up my buddy who was like literally one of the first dope junkies in our town. And I was like, dude, I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. Like, I'm so scared. I don't know I like legit just don't know what's going on at all. And he was like, yeah, dude, I know that feeling. You can go detox, you can go to rehab, you can do like IOPs, you can do sober living, but like you might as well not do any of it if you're not like working a program of recovery. And the one that he happened to do was a 12-step program. I got introduced to it. And obviously that's a completely another story and a whole nother thing. But that was the pain that I had to experience in my journey to get to the point where I was like, okay, I'm willing to do whatever you tell me.
Yeah.
Because I just can't feel like this anymore. And that was it. That really was the beginning.
So did you wind up going to a rehab or anything, or do you just go 12 steps and fucking yes, sir, yes, ma'am, whatever the fuck you say? Like,
yeah, I got, so in the very, very beginning, I had like a medication assisted recovery. I did do Suboxone for like 2 months. And I was really, really careful because like the medical opinion is pretty much if you're a heroin addict, we give you Suboxone, you take Suboxone the rest of your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's really scary, man. Like it's really, really scary. And I'd seen it happen. Like the same kid who introduced me, like he's still on Suboxone. And it's brutal, man. And I knew the dangers of that. I'd like used it a million times to try to like get through dope sicknesses and like self-prescription. You know what I mean? Like I would cop Suboxone illegally whenever I didn't have the money for heroin. I'd have Suboxone to just not be super, super sick or whatever. Like I always had it around. So I knew about it. And I also knew it was like equally, if not more addictive than most of the dope and fentanyl on the street.
And the withdrawal.
So, dude, it's long, like it's way longer than a traditional opiate withdrawal. Like it's really scary. And so I was on it for a couple of months, going to meetings, doing the thing, working with a sponsor, all that stuff. Tapered off to like a fractional marginal amount, tapered off completely. Was not doing like all this, like not doing like all this stuff. And I relapsed after that 2 months. And so, again, I'm just like such a big believer in like everything happening for a reason and like coming from a higher power. And that like I relapsed on heroin, have the worst week of my life. like 1 week of using, get 12 step twice. People come in my house, I'm gonna clean out my shit, drag my ass to a meeting like twice. And for whatever reason, man, like it was like just from a like pharmacological perspective, from a physical perspective, I had done enough dope to kick the subs out of my system, but not enough to experience horrible withdrawals when I kicked that this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like still obviously like super fucked up and crazy because I was still, even at that time, I was in very, very early recovery, even with the medication. So now I'm like completely clean physically. And after experiencing that relapse within recovery, that was really when I had that first step experience. It was like, oh, dog, you're going to pick up no matter what. Because it's not just, man, it's not just, oh, when I pick up drugs and alcohol, I don't know what happens. That's half of it. But the other half of it, man, is if left up to my own devices, that will happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was the first time I really got that. I was like, oh, dude, I was just sitting there, and next thing I know, I was fucked up. Like, and so that was like really eye-opening for me. And at that point, it was like, yes, sir. Like, if they were to tell me to do jumping jacks, I'd be doing like whatever, dude. 90 and 90, bazillion, like just taking phone numbers, burning desires, all of it, all of it. You know what I mean? And for me, that's what worked. You know what I mean? I never ended up in an institution by the grace of God. I never did rehab. I never did detox. I had like a bazillion cold turkey kicks along the way, like experienced full-blown withdrawals a bazillion times. Wouldn't wish them on my worst enemy. But like what really stuck was just sticking around sticking around like good people in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kept me well. You know what I mean? Listening to what they had to say. That was it.
Yeah. And are you still going to meetings and stuff, or since you moved to Boston?
Active. Yeah, super active. That was really a really interesting challenge, because when I got here, all I wanted to do was do comedy, right? But I knew that if I started to remove myself from the recovery that had worked for me so far, I'd lose everything. So I was like, well, if it wasn't for any of this stuff, you would have never done your first open mic. You know what I mean? You would have never done any of that. And so it's like, why change the formula? And so I'm still super duper active in those communities and like take it super duper seriously. And a lot of the time it's interesting you bring it up, because the current thing, like, you're always working on something new in your recovery. You're always like finding a new way to introduce those principles into like all these different areas of your life. And it's so easy, like I told, to get super hyper obsessed with the comedy, always writing, always open micing, always hitting shut, like all the stuff.
Just changing addictions, right?
Right. So, exactly. So I can get so lost in that stuff. But luckily, the solution that I've found in regards to recovery and abstinence from drugs and alcohol, I can do all those same things and apply them here. And it makes this whole thing better. So it's the same thing. I can work really, really hard. Nowhere does it say you can't do that. But when I let go of like the obsession, all of that stuff that gets back, because my way, Nat's way, I'm gonna crash and burn in all of my areas. But when I can let that higher thing in and just say, have faith, all of a sudden all my problems here go away, right? So that's been my experience, man. Like, there's no part of my life that I don't like introduce the things I've learned in those recovery communities in. Like, I really do it on a daily basis, like, unapologetically sober,
Hell yeah, man. It's especially when like I'm out in the community and festivals and when I actually meet someone who's like actually worked the program, like that shit's the connection is just, you just know what that person's been through without having to hear anything they've said. And like those relationships, it have been, like my sponsor, like we send each other freaking memes on Instagram. Like that's like we communicate every day through memes. Yeah. Like it's freaking, awesome. It's great, man. But the biggest thing that I've found through NA and through like all this, mindfulness practices and meditation, like all these different things, because I ventured out into like find out other ways, like different different things that can, you know, fill my life up with more things. And like the biggest thing, I forget the guy's name. He did a TED talk. He was on Rogan. Like he talked about Rat Park was like this big experiment that was done. And because everyone knows about the rat in the cage, that there's one that's cocaine and one that's water, and they always take the cocaine. But then when they built this whole like Rat Park, like all these things for them to do and put all these other rats in there, and they still put the water in the cocaine, they almost always chose the water to, and from that, they realized that like connection was the biggest thing that we were missing. And like the beautiful thing about all these, you know, the 12-step programs is you get in there and you immediately, that same feeling of like, oh my God, all these people know some people don't get that part right away. Some people are like, you don't know what I've been through. And you know,
I've been there.
They get there. They get there, right? Hopefully. But through my experiences, like I've got, you know, I've got a powerlifting team, and I've got the people that I coach, and I do health coaching, and then I've got all these people that have similar goals in the music community, and I've got like all these other communities, and everybody in the powerlifting team, we are all trying to hit, you know, certain numbers and be number one or whatever in our weight class in the state, whatever. Same with all these producers, like everybody's just trying to work hard and be successful with that. And like, and then for you, you've got all these comedians that you've surrounded yourself with, and
100%.
all these people that are freaking, you know, building up themselves. And when we were, you know, using like that's, there was no connection with any of the people we were using, and no one was trying to do better. Like it was, so like that thing is that I've learned, that's my favorite thing that I've learned from the program. And it's not just like, it's not just about having similar interests. It's like really learning about the other people and staying, you know, connection is deeper than just like your name. It's like, and it's not just your birthday, right? It's like, it's like it, when you match energies with someone and you feel yourselves, you know, growing together, and whether it be like for you with comedy, for me with music, for me with powerlifting, like all these different things that we're all striving to, we got to be better today than we were yesterday. And like in all these areas, and all these people have that same mindset. It's like, that is for me what's been, you know, the coolest part, you know, the most beautiful part of all this. And then
100%.
I've been so grateful for, you know, like you said, like none of this would have happened if like I didn't, first off, if I didn't get arrested, right? Like that saved my life, because like I was like, I didn't go to opiates because I had that, you know, first I had the rule of like, I'm not going to do anything. Right. Then I saw, you know, close friends of mine, and like they drank and everything was okay. And then they smoked weed and everything was okay. And then I was like, all right, but that's all I'm going to do. And then like I see the cool kids also do Adderall, and like, oh, what's Adderall like? And then it kept progressing. And then, you know, just like you with selling and stuff like that, that's what brought me. And it was all these little signs along the way, right? Like getting a ticket that I was originally supposed to be for marijuana possession, and it would have been a DUI, but then it got knocked down to disorderly conduct. And like, but that, you know, that was a sign to be like, hey, you shouldn't be doing this. Right. So, but instead I was like, for me, I took it as like, I got away with it. Like, yeah, you know, like there were so many signs like that, like getting fired from a job because I showed up stoned out of my mind and smelling like marijuana, because like, I thought, you know, it was like a company that a fraternity brother was owned, but then he also wasn't there. But then the manager that didn't like us was there. So like all these little signs, like, and it took like the big one of getting arrested for the big selling of the, you know, and I was terrified of freaking going to jail, because I was like 5'4". I wasn't this, you know, strong. I got built this since I got clean, right? Like I was terrified of what would happen in jail. And I wound up going
to rehab to just to look good for court. Like I still didn't think I was an addict because I was like, I'm not an addict because I didn't do opiates, right? Like, but meanwhile, just like you said, the addict behavior was all there through all the other drugs that I was doing. It's just I never made it to. I was such a freaking terrible addict that I couldn't even get to the good stuff, right? Like that's like what I say with it. Like, I was so bad at it, I didn't even get to the good drugs, right? Like, so it's like, but I'm really grateful that I didn't. Like I worked in a rehab, and after I got out, I got clean for a couple of years. Then it was like I want to give back, and working in a rehab was that burnt me out from stuff. Like I really dialed back all my involvement in A and NA after that happened. But then also like the shutdown happened, so like everything went Zoom, and so now it's a lot more of like, I told you, like that's how I communicate with my sponsor, and like things are good right now. Like if anything was really bad, like I know who to reach out to, right? Like it's for me now, it's like the connection with all these like people that are trying to be better, and then always knowing that like every day, like I'm still in a spot where like even if because I've been doing well, like I know that even if I add in, any sort of drug, it's like I still, I have my apartment in Philly, but I live at my parents' house most of the time. Like there's still a lot of parts in my life where I'm like, it looks good on the outside, but because like, marijuana's legal in Jersey now.
Right.
And alcohol is just legal. And like in all these instances where I could have fun doing these things. Like, I just know it'll never, I know I've given up my right to like have those things. It's like, I wasn't able to do those quote unquote the right way. It's like, smoking weed can be fun. It fucking was at the beginning, right? Yeah, drinking can be fun. It was at the beginning. Doing fucking Molly and acid, like candy flipping. Hell yeah, at festivals, that shit could be fun, right? But like, like you said, I don't know what's going to happen, but like, why risk it? Because all this good shit has happened since I've gotten clean. It's like, that's the road to keep going on. There's no, I've always made the joke, like if main stage ultra 10 p.m. slot closing out the festival, like maybe someone handed me a beer, but like at that point, it's like, no, because I only got there because I did, like, that's just the fucking like devil in my life. Like, it's totally. And I'm sure you can relate to that sort of feeling. And of course, especially, what about like with weddings and stuff that you've been to, like everyone's doing the cheers, and it's like, I wouldn't be here at this wedding and be able to have fun with you. Like I would be ruining this thing with you. And now and everybody thinks I'm fucked up anyway out at shows and festivals, because I go fucking nuts, right? Like you just how to live and have fun now, right? Like that. I'm sure your energy, you exude that energy as if but instead of like looking terrible like half the people, you fucking keep it together, right? Like,
totally. Yeah, I remember I went. So I still go to a bunch of like Tipper events. I'm big on Tipper.
Hell yeah.
And that's like my dude, big time. And every time, the music, it just hits me the right way, and I'm doing my thing. Like people are like, yo, can I get some of that L that you're on? Because you can see when someone's on good L versus bad L. You know what I mean? No, dude. And I'm like, nah, I'm not fucked up. And people think I'm like fucking with them. They're like, oh, come on, no, let me get some. And I'm like, dude, I swear to God. And so, and it's that same thing. It's like, we kind of learned how to like open up our minds and our hearts here in recovery. And I'm grateful for definitely certain like psychedelic experiences I had. Like, dude, when I meet someone who really has to get sober, right? Like, and they've never done a psychedelic, I'm like, damn, that sucks, dog. I'm like, you know what I mean? Dude, you missed the party. But I was just talking to my buddy earlier today. I got buddy in town visiting, buddy from the program. But but I really like, I mean, it really feels like I'm intoxicated and I'm completely sober. Like, just by, if you learn how to open up your heart and share with people, you're going to pick up on the goodness. Like, it's the same thing. You go to that like amazing meeting and like everyone's talking about the right stuff. And you're like, oh, dude, I feel great. I feel safe. I'm happy. Same shit. Where like, dude, everyone's having a good time for the right reasons. Those dudes who like know how to party responsibly, they earned it, right? Like, so many of those people at the festival, they've been kicking ass all year, dieting, exercising, got to Freud. They work so hard, and this is where they unwind. You're allowed to have that. I can't. You should. I'm so happy for you that you worked your ass off, and now you can take some Molly in the middle of a field and go see, you know, who have a clavicle stroke. That's awesome. I'm so stoked for you. I can't do that, but trust me, you're doing it for me. You know,
yeah, like we're having fun.
money, like totally. So yeah, it's like it's a really, really cool thing. I feel incredibly grateful. And the truth is, like, one thing I don't subscribe to, people say my best day drinking was worse than my worst day sober, and that's bullshit.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Like, I've had some really, really great times getting fucked up, and I've had some really, really bad days sober. But if being sober wasn't better, I wouldn't be sober. Like, why would I be sober if it wasn't? You know what I mean? Like, I have more fun than I've ever had. Like, my life is big. It's like really full. I'm getting to do this thing and chase like literally a dream. And it's like going good. Like, it's crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's really crazy. And I couldn't do any of it if I wasn't sober. So it's like, it's pretty cool.
And that's the big reason, you know, for having you on the podcast. Cause like, who knows who can see this but like anybody can freaking lose the desire to use and freaking follow, not just like get clean. Like it's one thing to just get clean, but to actually have like these hope, new lost dreams. What is it? Lost dreams. Awaken. I forget the freaking, now I'm like losing it. See, I really wish I remembered that now. But the fact that you're getting to, you know, chase this thing that you love, and like every day that you go out and do it, because like you're going out every night to these places where they serve, you know, all these things. Like I'm experiencing that too, but like waking up not fucking hungover, and even getting out of bed, just like being tired, you know what I mean, from being out all night. Like that shit's hard enough. Like
dude, oh my god. So like, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Fuck that. Like, no way.
Thank you for being like a beacon of hope for so many people that are watching this. I'm so excited to see how far you take this, because like we say in any of the programs, like if you take that energy that you had for getting drugs and put it towards something, like the sky's the freaking limit. And
right.
And you know, the fact that you were able to move to Austin, like the hub of freaking comedy now, and chase your dream like that's inspiration enough for so many people. So thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you for being on the podcast, Nat. I hope I see you on Kill Tony again soon.
You will, dude. You will.
Get Tony back and
yeah.
But thank you so much, man. This conversation, I needed this too, you know. So,
for sure.
Love you, brother.
Love you, dog.
To everybody that tuned in, spread peace, love, unity, respect. We're out.
Hell yeah.